Welcome back to DAGryffyn Hobby. My name's Dave. In this video, we're going to take a look at making a retaining wall out of a small piece of pink foam. In this video, we're going to make a at least semi-realistic brick wall out of this piece of foam. I'm going to do a small wall because otherwise it would take too long. You don't need a whole lot to do it. Just some of this thin foam, an X-Acto knife, a straight edge, maybe a pocket screwdriver, any other fine pointed items you might have around. Inch and a half. Inch and a half. Okay, so that's going to be the overall size of our wall. I don't know if I'm going to shape it down, make an angle or anything, but at the moment, this is where we're going to start. I guess what I'm going to do first, make marks every, what was that, 1/8 inch. And do it on the other side as well. Okay, that probably doesn't show up on the camera. I can barely see it, but hopefully that's enough. And now that I've got a scored line on each side, I can just line up my straight edge. And see, that didn't work. I messed that up, and that usually happens. So I'm going to say, let's try that again. It's okay to make mistakes. Okay, so I've made one line, then take a pocket screwdriver and just run it through that line that I just made. Now it doesn't look great because I messed up and did a angled line, but once we're done, you might still see it, but also it doesn't really matter. It can just be one of the unique features of this wall. So that's the first score, and we'll go and do the rest. This score ended up weird, so I'm going to skip to the next one. Could probably also have a sharper blade. I'm not too concerned if these end up straight or evenly spaced. I just want something that looks somewhat decent. And you just keep doing that for the rest of the height of the piece of foam. Might be easier to flip it the other way around once you've made a few lines so you can have a reference for what it is you're doing, so you don't make an angled line twice. That would be silly. And I'm really just putting enough pressure to score the front. I'm not trying to cut through it. I'm cutting maybe 1/3 to halfway through the foam. Now that all those lines are scored, I'll go over it with the screwdriver. So I ended up with kind of a really thin row here, which I might just cut off the top. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to go with 1/4 inch, I think. So every 1/4 inch, I'll just make a mark. It definitely helps to have a very sharp new blade. Let's see if this one's any better. Oh, that's sharp. And I'll just flip it over and do it to the other end too as well. I made a little slice on one side, a little slice on the other, and I'll just line up my straight edge and then score every other row. And that's the first column of bricks. So what I'll do from here is go across and do these same rows till I reach the other end of the foam. So I'm going to continue doing this across the whole thing. There's no reason for you to sit there and watch me monotonously carve little tiny lines. And then after I'm done with these rows that I've started, we'll come back and take a look. I made it all the way across with the cuts. Now I'll use the screwdriver to kind of open up those seams a little bit. I just put the screwdriver in there and wiggle it back and forth, widen those gaps. Now, if you're a really precise person, you can take time and use better tools and all that to make sure you're really getting the lines where you want them. I don't have the patience for that, and I don't really care if it's that precise. So a lot of it is just being eyeballed. And I'm okay with that, because once you put the thing in the scene, if there's little irregularities, I'm not, I'm not going to see it. Now, like anything else, there's numerous ways to go about doing this. This just happens to be the way that I've been doing it. There are a couple other methods I want to try out at some point, but this has been working pretty well for me so far. This top edge is not turning out so well, and that's fine. I didn't think it would, a little too thin. And the bottom edge, it's all right, even though I messed up that first score. If it's against the ground, cover that up with dirt and ground cover anyway. So now that I've done every other, I'll go back and do the other rows. And to start, I go halfway between the first brick line and the edge. So I'll just kind of eyeball it the rest of the way across. You can certainly take the time to measure out each one if you want, but like I said, I'm not that interested in being that precise. So we can see it's starting to look like a brick wall now. There are some spots where I've kind of overcut a little bit. Once you go back through and kind of spread the seams a little bit, it just looks like some irregularity to the brick shape, which I'm perfectly happy with. Okay, so all the score marks are made. So again, I'm going to go back with the pocket screwdriver and just press it into all the crevices and, try to widen everything up and clean everything up a little bit. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Another thing that the wiggling of the screwdriver does is it kind of rounds off the edges of all the pieces, makes them look a little bit more like stone or rock. Now this top row really didn't turn out, so I'm going to try to slice that off without damaging my wall. I did a decent job. Cut the side here a little bit. So these walls are really intended to be used as retaining walls. I don't do both sides, but I might do the top row or two on the back side, depending where it goes. Before I do that, I'm going to take the X-Acto knife and just shape the top edge of the brick down the length of the wall. Be careful not to push too hard, because if you do, you go all the way through the foam, and then you've got loose bricks. You can always put tape on the back of it. It's not a big deal. Glue it back on, or just go with it and decide that the wall's damaged, which is usually what I end up doing. I broke off the top piece here. It's all right. It'll just be part of the design now. Just try to pick off any loose little hairs or pieces, and then we can move on to the next step, which is paint. All right, painting. We're gonna go with black, light gray color. Trying to remember what colors I used. Well, let's just stick with that for now. You just want something diluted, really, and just brush it on. Doesn't matter if it covers everything yet. Doesn't matter if all the color is the same exactly. And I say don't worry if it's looking darker than you want it. You can always tone it down later. So after I go side to side, I try to go up and down, get in between all the vertical lines so that there's no pink. That's weird, it almost looks a little metallic. I'm going to do the top edge. And the sides. And that definitely turned out darker than I intended. Just do a little blotting, pick up the excess. And I'm going to do some more paint. You want to make sure that paint or water doesn't sit in the gaps. You want the color in there, but you don't want to end up filling in the gap. You can also put a little bit of paint on the tip of the pocket screwdriver if it's not getting down into some of the deeper cuts. A little bit of foam came off, and that's okay. It adds a little bit of a texture to that brick. If I see any that looks like it's filling in the mortar area, Pick it out. So I'm going to let that sit for a little bit and dry. It won't take too long since it was really watered down. So we should be back at this in a moment. Okay, I let it sit about 5 minutes or so. And I was looking at it, trying to figure out where I could add some detail to it as far as damage. And the way I do that is I look at the wall to see where I messed it up while I was cutting it. And I actually did a pretty decent job on this one, I mean, minus this cut there. But I do have a spot at this top edge where I had broken that little brick off and somehow ended up with an extra cut here. So what I'm going to do is use that as a starting place to do some damage on the wall. The irregularities in there are fine, but you don't want loose pieces. So I'm just gonna see if I can pull out any of the debris that's in here. And now I have a section of the wall that's damaged. I'll look for a small paintbrush and use some brown. And put that down into the little cavern I just created in the brick wall. So now with that little groove cut there, and it's done in brown, it could be dirt or whatever, just discoloration. You can stick some greenery in there to kind of make it look like, you know, there are weeds growing through it. I'm actually just looking at the color of the wall and wondering if I want to add something else to it. Maybe we'll try a little bit of diluted brown in spots. I like to lay down a very little bit and then blot it because I'm going more for texture than I am color. And I have some bricks that are a slightly different color. It's nice. And you don't want to use too much water on the brush because it will pull the paint off that you've already put on there. Let's paint the top half of the back, just in case you can see parts of it from the other side. And that really is about all it takes to make a brick wall like this. You can continue working on it and paint individual bricks. You can try to do a lighter color mortar. You can add more damage to it. You can add some greenery or weeds in between some of the bricks. I don't think I would do any more work though until this dries up and I can work on it without messing up the paint that's already on it. I didn't know where I was going to put this wall, and I figured I needed to put it somewhere, so I cut a spot on the layout to put it in right here. I've let the wall dry now for a couple hours. If I were interested in going back and adding more or different colors, I could do that now, but I'm kind of happy with the way it turned out. Put some caulk behind it and put it in place. What I like about the caulk is that you don't have to have things really flat. You know, you can have some space between, and the caulk will fill up the difference and secure the part. Okay, so the wall's in place. Pretty happy with the way it looks. Just put some glue down. I have this little tray here of scrap gravel and whatnot. When I'm making things, if I have a little bit extra that's either wet or mixed up and I don't feel like putting it back in the container, I put it in this and use it later. I probably should have waited for the caulk to dry, but I get impatient. I love using some of these bushes to kind of fill in spots that are a little bigger and a little harder to fill in. Unfortunately, the damaged part of the wall is all the way over on the side. A little hard to see. That's all right. I bought some bushes, green turfs from JTT Landscaping Materials. I'm not sure that I love the color, but the price was good. Drop some in for variety. It's pretty close. It's just got a slightly, I don't know. I'm not sure what I'd call the color, but I'm probably going to end up covering it up with other ground cover anyway, so I'm not sure it really matters. But it was definitely cheaper than the Woodland Scenic stuff. Now that I have some bushes down, I'll put down some more alcohol to help glue everything in place. I have a bunch of lichen that I also like to use for some detail on the growth. I'll pick out, you know, little pieces, or strands or whatever. There's probably enough glue and enough alcohol in there to get everything saturated. Probably too much, honestly. And I try to just mix up the colors as much as I can so that I don't have just a single color anywhere. Of course, I also have to pay attention to what else is around it, because I don't want the ground cover to be a startling different color from what was next to it. I also use static grass flock, even though I don't have a static grass applicator. I have a couple of colors of static grass. I put them in a sandwich bag and just kind of shake them around. Then just take pinches of it and kind of sprinkle it over the area. And I think I'm going to stop there because I have the tendency to just keep going and then making a mess of it. Not a bad little project. Took me maybe an hour to make the wall and 20 minutes to add the greenery around it. Obviously making a longer wall or a double-sided wall will be significantly longer, but the point is, this sort of project is pretty darn easy and can be pretty quick too. So if you're interested in trying it, practice it a couple times, or just jump right in and make yourself a brick wall. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time on DAGryffyn Hobby.